Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. So, good afternoon and welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for today's session. My name is Shruti Barguzer and I'm a third year CSE student, and I welcome you all on the behalf of GH Raisoni Institute of Business Management, Jalgaon, the Department of Computer Science and Information Technology, Artificial Intelligence and Data Science. Today, we will be having an expert talk on authorization and access control approach by Dr. Mahendra Pratap Singh. Just a little housekeeping before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them in your chat box. I'll bring them up during the presentation, and we'll also have time for question and answers at the end. So, I would briefly introduce you all to the expert for today's session, that is Dr. Mahendra Pratap Singh. He is HOD of CSE Department and an assistant professor at National Institute of Technology, Karnataka. He holds PhD from Indian Institute of Technology, Kharagpur. He is the ACM and IEEE senior member. He has various articles and conference papers published by his name on the topics like security analysis of unified access control policies, managing attribute-based access control policies in unified framework using data warehouse and in memory-based. Attribute-enabled role-based access control model, network dominating attack detection and mitigation, managing multidimensional, multi-granular security policies using data warehouses, and many more. Now, without further ado, we will turn the time over to Dr. Mahendra Pratap Singh. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. A very good afternoon to all. Good afternoon, sir.
So I'm sharing my screen. Just let me know whether you all can see my screen or not. Whether my screen is yes, whether you all can see my screen.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. It is visible to you all. Okay, fine. Okay, fine. So I will start in between. In case if you feel that my screen is not moving, you just let me know. Sometime it happened. Okay. As I have already as I am already introduced, and this is my second time when I am interacting with uh, you all. So my specialization is actually in the as authorization, which comes immediately after the authentication. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the authorization, because generally, when we speak about security properties or the principles of security properties, mostly we used to talk about authentication, confidentiality, and integrity. No one speaks about authorization, which comes immediately after the authentication. So in today's talk, I'm going to introduce this authorization. I'm going to tell you guys what authorization is and how authorization is playing an important role in our life. Though day by day, we are encountering authorizations, but we are not familiar about that. That is why we don't know what this activity is. Okay. So I'm going to introduce this authorization activity to you all. And for your kind information, as I told, authorization comes immediately after the authentication. It means authorization is the part of our day-to-day, you can say, life applications. So first of all, what I will try to do, though you can say the presentation topics looks too long, but in brief, I am going to introduce the terminology of authorization to you all. I will discuss three different type of access control models. Okay, out of that, two are used in the industry to, let's say, define the real-time authorization requirement, or we used to call as access control requirements. We will see how we can capture the access control requirement by using those models, as well as I will discuss about the implementation of those approaches by using a database approach, because these model provides framework to us. So let us first see the terminologies, and then let me talk about the authorization. So what the access is, if I'm not wrong, I will define access something like this. Access is a specific type of interaction. Now the word, the moment I'm using word is specific, specific represents few, you can say, operations such as read, write, append, delete, execute. Sometimes you access some information, you access some page in order to, let's say, get the some information available on that page, or maybe in a particular resource system. Okay, so access is a specific type of interaction between a user and an object that causes the flow of information from one to another. Fine. Now the flow of information is coming. So why we need, let's say, so whenever you will access something, the flow will happen. Fine. Information may move from other end to your end, or maybe from your end to the other end. So if I'm talking about the information, I can divide information in two different categories. I should divide, otherwise, the meaning of the access and then the access control will not be justified properly. So nowadays, basically we have two type of information: sensitive information and non-sensitive information. Let me first talk about the non-sensitive information. So disclosure of non-sensitive information does not cause any harm to an individual or an organization. So what are the examples of non-sensitive information? Such as PIN code, your gender, date of birth, place of birth, religions. These are some of the non-sensitive information. And the disclosure of this information does not cause any harm. While the disclosure of sensitive information causes harm to an individual or an organization. So what are the examples of sensitive information? Such as health care related information, medical insurance related information, your financial related information, your social security numbers such as Aadhaar card. Earlier it was not masked, now it is masked. Fine. So sensitive information is not meant for everybody or is not meant for all. And if an information is not meant for all, then definitely we should restrict the access of that information to the intended users only. Now the question here is, restricting the access of an object is known as the control on that object, access control on that object. So now the question here is how to control that. Why we should control is very clear, because some information is sensitive and we should protect the interest of sensitive information. Why? Because the sensitive information is not meant for all. Another example, you all are holding, let's say, the banking account with XYZ bank, fine? And your banking information is sensitive, is critical information, and you should not share with anybody. Fine. So that is why, though we have a single interface to access, let's say, a particular bank online web page, but when we are providing our user ID and password, and once we are successfully authenticated, what the server is going to display to us, only the information belongs to the authenticated user, not to the other user of that particular organization. Which means there is some sort of access control. That access control restricts the access of information to the authenticated user only. Fine. So what is access control? So if I'm saying that it is a process of restricting access to the resources of a system only to authorized programs, processes, or other systems. Because a process can access another process. Fine. A process can access a resource, a program can access a resource, a program can access another program. Fine. So not all program can access all the process of a system. Fine. So they are supposed to be an access control. So access control is a process of restricting the access to the resources of a system only to authorized programs, processes, or other systems. So now the question here is how to do that. So authorization is a process, fine, by which a system security module determines which features, or you can say the parts of a system a user can access, as well as the level of access. Right? So in other words, I can say that authorization uses access control mechanisms to control the access of a user on the system resources and data. Let me take an example of your system, whatever you have. Nowadays, you all are owning the laptop. Let's say if your laptop is a standalone, means your laptop is not at all connected with the network. Inside your laptop, you have a lot of files, fine, and you don't want anybody else other than you to access that laptop. Then what will you do? You will create only one account, fine, and most probably you will take the admin privilege, fine, and then you will set a user ID and password. Then there onward, nobody else other than you can access that laptop. Why? Because in order to access the resource present in that laptop, somebody is supposed to enter the user ID and password, which only you knows. You know, nobody else other than you knows. Let's say later you change your mind. Now you want to give the access of your system to somebody else. So if you are using Windows, Windows provides facility to you to create a normal user account. And once you create a normal user account, normal user can access few things. Normal user cannot access any system files. Fine. Now the question here is, you have just selected a normal user account. How these permissions or the privileges are mapped to that particular, let's say, role or the account, which is named as a normal user account. So some sort of access control mechanism is there in the Windows operating system, let's say, in order to enable you to create a normal user account and then restrict the access of your laptop to the other users through that account. Right? And most of the Windows operating systems are using the role-based access control model. So we will see what the role-based access control model is. Fine. Sorry. So one thing is very clear. If you want to prevent the unauthorized use of system, resources, and data, then what you are supposed to do, you should have some sort of access control mechanism running in the backend of your application in order to control who can access what, when, and from where. There are various types of access control model. I'm not going to cover all. I'm going to cover 3 basic access control model. One is traditional and 2 are the, you can say, recent access control models. So, these requirements of new and emerging applications and a changing environment have led to significant advance in the field of access control. And this has broadened the scope of access control decision dimensions, which means access can be controlled by using various security features, levels, or I can say that decision dimensions such as attributes. Attribute can be a role, can be designation, can be your department name, right? Can be your category, can be a security level. And this has resulted in several access control models, such as discretory access control model, mandatory access control model, and role-based access control model. Now, before getting into the access control models, I want to take an example, because without example, I will not be able to convey the real use of authorization in the real life. So I have considered a banking scenario. I am assuming that you all are familiar with the banking scenarios. So what I have considered a branch of a bank, and I am assuming that nowadays if you go to a branch, you may find various departments in a branch. These departments are there to provide different types of services to us. Fine. One of the department which is most common and known to all of us is the branch banking department, where we used to go and interact with the, let's say if I want to open a new account, or if I want to get online banking access of my existing account, or I want to go for a mobile banking and all, then you are going to interact with the branch banking department. Fine. Apart from that, we have a business banking, priority banking, forex and treasury banking. And if you see these departments, this department provides various services to us, and those services involve, again, confidential and sensitive information. Now, why I'm not talking about non-sensitive information here? Because if the information is non-sensitive, it means that information is meant for all, and I need not to control or restrict the access of that information. Because once the information is open for all, there is no need to put a door for that. Because that will be the wastage of resources. Right? But when I'm talking about the confidential and the sensitive information, then I should have some sort of authorization mechanism immediately after the authentication to ensure that only the intended receiver can or recipient can get that information. Fine? Okay. If you see the bank, you may find mostly two types of stakeholders. One is the customer and another one is the employees. Customer utilizes the services of the banking system, and the employees are there to help the customers to make use of their services. If you see the structuring of a branch, mostly a branch is headed by an employee of AVP grade. Okay, in the bigger size branch, who is designated as the branch head. This branch head term you all are familiar. Fine. Each department of a bank is comprised of employees in the grade of assistant manager, deputy manager, manager, and the senior manager. Some of you are familiar with that also. And if I'm talking about, let's say, branch, so I have given the short form here. BB means business bank, branch banking. Okay. So if you go to the branch banking department, you may find a senior manager grade person is heading that branch. Okay, designated as the branch operation head. So you see, I have a grade and then I have a designations. Fine. Just keep these things in your mind, because when we are going to define access control policies, access control rules by using a particular access control model, then we are going to identify different types of things from a scenario. And in our case, we are going to consider the banking scenario only. So in this branch banking department, employees in the grades such as AM assistant manager, DM deputy manager, M manager are designated as customer service officers. And I also, customer service officer word is known to you all. If you go to the maybe the public sector bank and the private sector bank, you may see a big board when you will enter into any branch, customer service officer. Fine. But again, the customer service officers of various grades. Fine. So you may find customer service officer of AM, DM, and M grade in the branch banking department, whereas the relationship manager of AM, DM, and M grade in the business banking and the priority banking departments. Some of you, if you have got the chance to interact with the treasury department, let's say in order to get the currency card if you are going abroad. Fine. So in the treasury department, the employees of AM, DM, M, and SM grades are designated as a TXP customer service officers. Fine. In any branch of the bank, let's say the PSB, PP, TXP departments can be headed by employees of manager and senior manager grades. So what we have a department. Each department can be head by M or SM grade, you can say employee. Fine. And in every department, you may find the employees of AM, DM, M, SM grade may be designated as customer service officer, as TXP customer service officer, or the relationship manager. So this is the rough idea of a branch structure of a bank. So let us take out something from this scenario, because later when we are going to define the access control policies by using a particular access control model, which shortly I'm going to cover in my presentation, you will see how we can make use of these set of, let's say, attributes and the values. So if I'm talking about the user type, broadly we have two types of users, customer and employees. If I'm talking about the object types, as of now, just I have considered two object types for the simplification purpose, but we can have various type of objects. So I have just considered the customer record and the transactions. These are the two object types. I'm assuming that you all are familiar with these two type of object types. Grades, yes, just now I have introduced. Designation also just now I have introduced.
Departments, yes. And apart from this, another important thing is there. These banks, they have a fixed working hours. So they can do you can say the banking, they can provide banking services to you during that time only, if you are visiting the branch. If you are trying to do online, again, there are cut-off time for some set of services, and the some set of services are available 24/7 to you guys, other than the maintenance hour. Fine. When I'm talking about the employees of a branch, employee can perform their task during working hours only. Fine. They cannot do the activities before or after the working hours. Fine. It means, let's say, if they are supposed to create a transaction, they can create that transaction during working hours only. If an employee is supposed to approve a transaction, he can approve the transaction within working hour only. Because evening 7 p.m. is the cutoff time for them. They used to call as a system handover time. If something is not completed, then forcefully central office will take over their system, and whatever is committed will be committed, and whatever is not committed will be rolled back. Right? And then the branch of posting is the another important thing. So X branch employee can perform their responsibility from X branch only, though there is a online interface, though there is a core banking facility. Fine. Core banking facility does not enable X branch employee to go and perform his duty from Y branch until he is designated to Y branch. And if he is designated to the Y branch, then he will not be able to perform his task at the X branch at the same time. Okay, so these are some of the requirements which we have gathered from the banking scenario. Now let me talk here about the access control requirement of the banking system, and then we will see what are the various access control models are there and how we can specify, let's say, the policies by using those access control models. So let us assume that the first banking system requirement is senior manager or manager grade employee in the branch banking department through the rule customer service officer can approve a transaction which is not initiated by that user and is up to his approval limit during working hours from the branch of posting. I don't know how many of you are familiar with the, you can say, branch banking money withdrawal process. Okay. So cashier is allowed to withdraw, let's say, approve the withdrawal of a certain amount, which is not more than 5,000. If any transaction, any withdrawal limit of more than that comes to the cashier, what the cashier is going to do, the moment you will hand over the slip, cashier will create a transaction, will make an entry of that in the system, and then let's say maybe the branch operation head supposed to approve that transaction, and once the transaction is approved, then the cashier will give that amount to you after verifying whether you have a sufficient balance in your account, matching the signature and all those things. Fine. So when I'm talking about, let's say, the online environment, let's say you have requested a currency card. So you approach to the TXB department, transaction customer service officer, TXB customer service officer. So TXB customer service officer has asked you, kindly fill this form, and you have told him, I have an account with your branch. So he will ask you to fill a withdrawal slip. Fine, and then he will post that transaction. He cannot approve that transaction. Neither he nor the manager or the senior manager of the TXB customer service TXB department can approve that transaction. Who can approve that transaction? So as you can see here, only the senior manager or the manager grade user in the branch banking department can approve a transaction which is not initiated by that user and is up to his approval limit. So everything is defined in the system. Let's say the manager approval limit is only 1 crore. If any transaction is above than that, will directly go to the senior manager, and in his window it will flash. He has to approve that. Fine. So this is the one requirement. Fine. This is an access control requirement in the system. Okay, and these type of requirements are defined inside the you can say the applications which is being used by the current banks. And another requirement is any grade user in any department through the role customer service officer or relationship manager can read the customer record. It means you see only the customer service officers and the relationship manager can read customer record. That too during working hours from the branch of posting only. If they are going to some other branch and they will try to access the information of the other branch, right? That he cannot do by using his ID because he is designated to other branch. But that branch employee can do. Fine. Similarly, requirement 3. Deputy manager grade user in the Forex and Treasury department through the role TXP customer service officer can initiate a transaction, as I told you guys. Again, during working hour from the branch of posting. Fine. Similarly, 4th requirement is senior manager, manager or deputy manager grade user in the branch banking department through the role customer service officer can update a customer record during working hours from the branch of posting. So these are the 4 basic requirements. Like that, various other requirements are there, and for each and every requirement an access control policy is defined. Okay, that is why, if you want to open an account, you will approach a nearby branch, and then in that branch you will approach branch banking department, not the XYZ department, because that request can be facilitated by the branch banking department only. Though you will go to XYZ department of that branch, again they will redirect you to the to the branch banking department only. Fine. So these are the requirements. And now what I want to do, we want to define policies. So we want to specify, enforce policies. Okay. We will see how we can do that. Okay. Before that, I want to convey the scope of the authorization to you all. Now you consider resources, systems, and data that need to be protected under access control policy, sometime under more than one access control policies also. Fine. Simultaneously, at multiple levels of granularity, as you can see in the previous examples, fine, access is restricted during working hour from the branch of posting. So see the granularity of time, the granularity of the location. Fine. So let's say if we have a unified framework that would help an administrative user to specify such type of access control policies. Because now again question is, who specifies these policies? So if I'm talking about the present world, we have specialized persons known as security architect. Some are specialized in the banking domain, some are specialized in the some other domain. So what they used to do, they used to define the overall access control requirement of a banking system. And then policies are created. And then those policies are reflected inside the system by the system administrator. So system administrator will create those policies inside the system. Fine. Okay. Suppose, let's say policies are specified, because there are questions. If system admin is specifying the policies in a system, what is the guarantee that he specifies correct policies? There's supposed to be some control on it. Yes, for that, we have security analysis of security policies. So once the policies are specified, after that, we used to evaluate those policies against some security properties in order to see that the policies are correctly reflected in the system, and policies are only doing the things which they are supposed to do, not anything else other than that. And whenever there is a change, whenever a system is moving from one state to the another states, every time security properties are verified. Okay, and if there is a no violation, then the system is moved to the new state. Otherwise, system is not moved to the new state. Now, what do you mean by the violations? So violations in the sense means, let's say, now I have some permissions. After some time, those permissions are removed from me. But still, if I am able to get those permissions, it means there is some problem in the specification of the policies in the system. Fine. So system should check that. What is the problem? Okay. So if you see the access control models, fine, we have basically three types of access control models. Traditional access control models, which includes discretory access control model, mandatory access control models, and then we have various variations of access control model inside that. Role-based access control model is one of the well-known access control model in the industry. Still, it is used. Attribute-based access control model is the future of the access control model, fine, which provides much more flexibility to us, okay, and is being used in the industry, but not like Abac. So in today's discussion, I'm going to cover just these three access control model: discretory access control model, rule-based access control model, and the attribute-based access control model. So if I'm talking about the discretory access control model, here the owner of the objects specifies which subject, user or group can access the object. As the owner specifies, this model is called discretory because the control of access is based on the discrimination of the owner. So most operating systems such as Linux, Macintosh, and various flavors of Unix are based on discretory access control model. In these operating systems, when you create a file, you decide what access privilege you want to give to other users when they access your file. Sorry. So the operating system will make access control decision based on the access privileges you created. That is why DAC is a user-centric access control model. Fine. As user can manage their data and quickly access data of others, that is why it is user-friendly. This approach is flexible. Why? Because user can configure data access parameters without administrator, because here owner is supposed to decide everything. Easy to implement also. Why? For adding new object, users do not take much time for the administration, because you will create an object and then immediately will define who can access what. But what are the problems with this type of approach? So one problem is the inconsistency with global policies. As DAC, discretely access control model, lets user decide the access control policies on their data regardless of whether they are consistent with the global policies. And if there is a global policy, DAC has troubled ensuring consistency. Another thing is the information flow cannot be restricted. Yes, it is true. Let's say if I have given access to you and you are allowed to copy that information, you will copy the information from my file, which I have shared with you. And then you will create another file and you will copy this, whatever you have copied from my file, will save in that file and you will create another copy of that. And then you will share that copy with somebody else. That copy contains same information. Though I am the owner of that information, but I cannot control the flow of the information. Because once you have created a copy of that, you became the owner of that. Fine. And now you have a right to share that information with that. Okay. Another problem is the malicious software threats. So DAC policies can be easily changed by the owner. If so malicious program running by owner can change DAC policies on behalf of the owner. Similarly, flawed softwares are there. So flawed software can be instructed by attackers to change its DAC policy. Right? So these are some of the disadvantage of the discretory access control model. So now the question came, and there does not exist any, you can say, administrative model for the discretory access control model. So RBAC, role-based access control model, is most widely used and accepted access control model in the commercial organizations. What it does, it groups job functions. Like, manager, what a manager in a branch banking department, in a branch of a bank supposed to do. Fine, so group job functions under a single entity, which is named here as a role, into roles, and provides a mechanism for easy administration of roles. Fine. So how, as you can see here, the set of activities are bundled under a single entity, which is named here as a role. And then this role is assigned to the user. Fine. So in this case, let's say if you want to remove these many permissions which are bundled into a single entity named here as a manager from a user, what you are supposed to do? Just you are supposed to deassociate that role from the user, and then there onward that user will no longer be able to perform such type of activities in the organization. So the administration is easy, right? Because your permissions are assigned to roles, and then roles are assigned to users. If you want to revoke a permission from a user, what you are supposed to do? Revoke that permission from the role. And revocation of a permission from a role will disable that user to perform that activity. So what is the permission here? That is the question. Fine. So in your online banking, when you authenticate yourself, after the authentication, you can see the home page, and over the home page, you can see so many options. Fine. Those options are permissions. Why? Because with the help of some option, you can access your profile. With the help of some options, you can see your last you can see your last 10 transactions. With the help of some option, you can see your current account balance. Fine. So those are the options, or those are the permissions for you, which you can perform through that interface once you are successfully authenticated. Because authorization makes use of the user ID of the authenticated user and checks that whether that user can perform a particular task in an organization or not. So whatever you can see in the home page, fine, of your screen, okay, those are the permissions which you can perform after the successful authentication. So if I'm talking about RBAC, basically RBAC contains three main important components. One is known as user role assignment component, which captures the association of user with role. Another one is the role permission assignment, which captures the association of permission with role. And the third component is the role only. So these are the three major components are there of a role-based access control model. I will show you the, you can say the database implementation of that, so that you will be able to understand a little bit. So if I'm talking about the advantage of the role-based access control model, it is easy to administer. And you all know why it is easy to administer. If you want to revoke a permission, okay, just go and refer the permission role assignment relation, okay, and then remove that entry, fine, which enables, which contains the association of permission with role. Fine, then you will be able to revoke a permission from the role. So it is easy, fine. But when I'm talking about the disadvantage of role-based access control model, you cannot specify the fine-grained access control policies by using this particular framework. Why? As I told you guys, you will find manager, grade employee in business banking department, also in the branch banking department also. And as I told you guys, the branch banking department manager cannot perform the branch, let's say a branch operation department manager cannot perform the TXV manager responsibilities, right? So they are supposed to be two different roles, because if you create a single manager role and if you assign all the permissions to this role, then all the managers from all the department can access all the permissions, and which is wrong. So that is why we cannot specify the fine-grained access control policies by using the RBAC. Then you can counter a question, sir, you said RBAC is highly used. Then how come RBAC is used? Yes, RBAC is highly used. So what they did, in order to create in order to avoid the creation of a role per user, they have specified these kind of conditions as a, you can say, application code inside the application itself. Fine. And whenever an access control requirement comes, what they do, they first check that what are the roles associated with that user. Fine. And then they go and check those special conditions. And as per those special conditions, only the permissions which are supposed to be available to that user, fine, will be shown to that user, and then the rest, though all the permissions are associated with this rule. Fine. So more or less, what they were doing some sort of attribute-based filtration of the permission. Fine. So that is why this attribute-based access control model came in the picture. Attribute-based access control model, defines the access based on the attributes of subject, resource, action, and environmental conditions. Fine. Subject attributes such as identity, location, department. Resource attributes such as type, data, label. Action can be maybe the read, write, or action can be a debit, credit. Fine. Environment. These attributes are independent from the subject and resources and can be timestamp, system state, date, location, device type, anything. Fine. So though the administration of Abac is quite complicated, why? Because if I want to see the visualization of the effect of a change in a policy, or I want to obtain the permission available to a user of a system, it requires the evaluation of a large number of rules in case of attribute-based access control model. Whereas in case of Abac, what myself supposed to do? Myself supposed to just go and refer the user role assignment relation, find out the roles available to that user, and then go and see whether those roles have these permissions or not. If yes, then I can see that yes, these are the, let's say, the permissions this user can perform in an organization. So when I'm talking about Abac, I can say that in Abac, the initialization of Abac is easy. Why? Because anything you can consider as attribute, and then you can define the policies. Fine. But the administration is difficult and will be complex if you consider anything as attribute. Fine. So let us take an example of the implementation of, I can say, of this access control model. So let us see first Abac implementation. Fine. So how those requirements can be specified by using the role-based access control model. So these are the roles, you remember, which we identified in the banking scenario: customer service officer, relationship manager, TXV customer service officer, branch head, branch operation head. So these are the roles. Fine. Let me define a permission. So I'm saying that permission 1, which is approve action on transaction. So whoever is going to have this permission, they can perform approve operation on a transaction. Fine. Here I have wrote TX1, but let's say if this is for any transaction, then I will say in general transaction. Fine. Permission 2 will enable to perform the read operation over the customer record. I have mentioned a one particular, let's say, if this enables to perform the read operation on all the records, then we will say any. Fine. So like that, I have defined some permissions. Now you see what I am doing. First of all, I am doing the role permission assignment. It means I am assigning the permissions to role. Customer service officer is a role. I am assigning permission 1. So this permission will enable this customer service officer to approve the transactions. Permission 2. So this permission will enable relationship manager to perform read operation on the object O1 or the customer record O1. Fine. So like that, you see, I have created role permission assignment. And now I'm going to assign these roles to users. So let us assume that we have 4 roles, users, U1, U2, U3, U4. And now we are assigning roles to user. So the moment I assigned customer service officer role to the user U1, it means here onward, this user U1 can perform approve operation over transaction. Fine. Why? Because this user has a role customer service officer, and this customer service officer role has a permission. A user can have multiple roles. A role can have multiple permission. A permission can be associated with multiple roles. Fine. And a role can be associated with multiple users. Okay. So user role assignment is a subset of U cross R. Cross represents the Cartesian product. U is a user, R is a role. Cartesian product of user and role. Fine. So see, 4 users are there and these many roles are there. If we create the Cartesian product of that, you will find the all possible combinations. But what is actually captured here is only the allowed possible combination. Because our aim here is to control the dissemination of sensitive information. Okay. So in this way, we can specify Abac policies. Now the question here is, you can ask, sir, how to save these policies. So either you can store these policies as data in the database, or you can use XACML, XACML, Extensive Access Control Markup Language. Fine. By using that, you can define policies in a file format. Or you can use OAuth tool to create Abac policies. Fine. So like that, various other environments are there by using which you can create Abac policies. Framework will remain same. What will vary? How you are going to capture this information, that will vary. But you will find role permission assignment, you will find the permission, you will find the user role assignment, you will find role component, whatever way you are using to capture the Abac policies. Now let me talk about the Abac policies, just to clear you guys. Fine. So in the Abac, how we define the policies. Let's say first I will show you the Abac policy. So Abac policy looks like this. As I told you guys, in Abac, policies are defined by using the attributes of subject or the user, object, fine, access right, and the environmental conditions. So you can see I'm using user attributes. The first parenthesis represents the user attributes. So here, this particular thing says that grade can be senior manager or manager, department, branch banking, role, customer service officer. Fine. So if a user of senior manager grade or manager grade of branch banking department, fine, having a customer service officer role, can perform this approve right on the object type transaction within approval limit not created by him during the working hours. So EC1 represents environmental condition, which is defined here, which is nothing but office hours and the branch job posting. Okay. So Abac policies are specified something like this. Again, how you can capture these policies? Either you can use database to capture these policies, or you can define these policies by using XACML. You can define these policies by using OAuth. Fine. So how you want to define? You can define. Various ways are there to capture these Abac policies. Now, if you see the Abac policies, you see, with the help of the Abac policies, we can specify the fine-grained access control policy. It means whatever the requirements mentioned here in these statements, all these requirements can be captured by using the attribute-based access control model, but not by the role-based access control model. Because in the role-based access control model, we have a limited components. Due to that, we can only capture few part of the requirement, and the rest of the part of the requirement supposed to be defined as a program in the application or as a special conditions inside the program. Fine. And those conditions need to be checked as and when the access request comes. Okay. So in this way, we can specify the Abac policy. Now the question here is how system verifies that. So let's say you all have a Gmail account. You will type www.gmail.com. Then you can see the home page. There you are supposed to supply your user ID and password in order to authenticate yourself. You will supply your email ID and password, and you will press submit button. Once you have submitted that, request will go to the authorization server. Authorization server will match your credentials. If everything is fine, will authenticate you. Once you are successfully authenticated, then authorization server will pass your user ID to authorization server. Nowadays, authorization as a service. Authorization server will take your user ID, will refer the policies. Okay, policies will be defined. If Abac is used, the policies will be defined something like this. Or if RBAC is used, policies will be defined something like this. We'll refer the policy. Fine. We'll evaluate the request. Fine. And after the evaluation, whatever the outcome is there, that those outcomes will be passed to the application server where actually the application is hosted. Fine. And let's say in the home page of application, you have 10 options, but right now you can access only 9 options. Fine. As per the evaluation of the policies, what will happen? If you see your home page, in the home page, you may find the 10th option is disabled for you, though you are allowed to access, but right now you cannot access, maybe because of the location or the time restriction. Fine. So a home page will be displayed with 9 enabled and 1 disabled permission to you. Fine. So in this way, by using access control model, we can restrict the access of system resource and data. And if we are able to restrict the access of system resource and data, we will be able to ensure the confidentiality and as well as the integrity of the information, because we will be able to safeguard our information against unauthorized disclosure of information. Fine. We will be able to safeguard our information against the unauthorized modification of the information. Why? Because not everybody can access. Whenever you will authenticate, authorization server will take your ID, will verify what are the things this user can access. Only those many permissions will be disabled for you, and rest of the permissions will be enabled. Fine. So in this way, we will be able to control the access of system, resource, and data by using access control model. Okay. So that's it from my side for the access control models. In case if you have any question, I'm here to answer your questions.
Sir, I was having one.
Yeah, please.
Sir, what will be the differences between the access control and the MFA, multi-factor authentication?
Yeah, see, these multi-factor authentication and authorization are two different processes. Fine. With the help of the authentication, you are going to prove yourself to the system. Means who are you? Okay. Authentication is for that purpose. Authorization is what you can access. Okay. So these are the two different processes. Authorization comes immediately after the authentication. So multi-factor authentication is a way where twice some information or let's say that is a two-factor. So there twice you can say two different type of credentials will be asked. Okay, in order to prove yourself. Yes, you are the so and so, and you are the registered user of this service. You can access this service. Okay, so one example of multi-factor or two-factor authentication is, let's say, first you type your user ID and password, press submit button. After that, an OTP will come to you. Then you supply that OTP. Once you have supplied the OTP, it means system has, you can say, doubled assure that you are, let's say, so and so. Okay, so your identity will be proved to the system, and then the authorization server will take that identity to check that what you can access right now.
Got it, sir. Got it. Yeah. Thank you, sir.
Yes, thank you, sir. Do anyone else have any questions? Okay, I think we don't have any questions now. So thank you. We appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining. And before we wrap up the session, I'll pass the control to Shanavas for the perfect ending of the session. Over to you, Shanavas.
Yeah, thank you, Shruti. And I take immense pleasure in presenting the vote of thanks. Last but not the least, I would like to thank our special guest, Dr. Mahendra Pratap Singh, sir, who, despite of his busy schedule, has found time to grace this session with his valuable knowledge. And I also express my heartfelt thanks to Dr. Sonal Patil ma'am, Head of Computer Science and Engineering, Information Technology, Artificial Intelligence and Data Science departments for taking one more such initiative, resulting in the organization of this beautiful session. I thank all the distinguished invitees present here who accepted our invitation and attended the session with utmost patience and attention. I hope all the participants would have learned a lot and enjoyed a lot during the session. Again, I request all the participants to stay connected with us through the WhatsApp group for further sessions and do fill the feedback form. Thank you. Stay home, stay safe.